Hello, everybody. We're back for more. Today, as promised, we are going to do a small reading on Irene's upcoming book. And this book contains, tell us what it contains inside.
The book I'm writing is basically a compilation of my life. It includes memories, poetry, recipes, some pictures, bright, colorful images of food and why I love food.
Cool, cool. So I'm
So
going
it's a
to,
mix.
yeah, so I'm going to read one of the short stories that you have in here. And here we go. You ready? Okay. Living with my grandfather in Tijuana was another story. He was like a scientist in the kitchen. He was always making all these concoctions to remain younger. He was obsessed with feeling young and looking good. He was quite the ladies' man, and by this time, my grandparents had already been divorced. So he was living the single life and loving it. My grandpa would have all these interesting jars in the fridge of things fermenting and bubbling that to this day I'm not sure what all of that was. But I was intrigued. I would watch him from afar while watching cartoons from the living room. He'd go outside and cut down aloe vera plants from the garden. He'd peel away the outer skin and use the slimy flesh in his smoothies, along with nopal and pineapple. He would religiously drink this magic potion. He was onto something, he really was. It took me a few decades to understand what he was doing. He was taking care of himself. He was giving his body the vital nutrients needed so he could operate at an optimal level. My grandpa lived to be 93 years old, and his health deteriorated once he got sick and fell under the care of a nursing home where all they would feed him was white bread sandwiches and cookies while being diabetic. Oh my gosh,
Right.
I digress. What I'm getting at is that my childhood was filled with nurturing experiences. My grandparents were giving me important information, edible gemstones that would fuel my passion into my adulthood. This book is a sort of compilation and collection of stories and recipes. I'll share ingredients that I fell in love with as a child and how in my adulthood I've created into recipes to feed myself, my family, and clients. All right. So that's the short story, and then you have here the actual recipe for that. That's is it a smoothie or a
Yeah,
juice?
el licuado is a smoothie.
Okay, so it's a smoothie. Okay, all right. So can we go behind the scenes on this a little bit?
Yes.
All right. I kind of dig that. All right. So as soon as you allowed me to go through this through your book, right, and choose the one that stood out to me, and as soon as I saw this, I was like, this guy sounds awesome. You know.
Oh, my grandpa.
I didn't get to meet him, unfortunately, but I know you went to go visit him as he was passing. But anyhow, coming back to the story, did you did he ever give you some of this smoothie or licuado for you to try as a little girl?
Not the smoothie. I would see him doing it because the kitchen kind of led into the living room, so it was kind of open. I would see him. He never shared his smoothie with me, but what he would share was his purgaros, which
Okay, what is that?
till this day, I don't know how it specifically translates to English, but it was, I guess he was making yogurt or like it was like these cultures, like this kind of milky stuff, like he was making yogurt. So it had the taste that I remember, I can relate it to is like kefir or kefir. My grandpa was obsessed with looking young. He had these they looked like glue sticks, but they were like ink. Like, so he would paint his mustache and anything that was white, he would paint it, and I was trying to look real dapper.
How about food? What would he eat?
You know what? I think my grandpa, when it came to food, I think he really relied on like my mom, or like my mom worked 6 days a week when we were kids living in Tijuana. So she had this lady Amparo that was like a friend of the family come and cook meals. So I don't remember so much his eating. I remember his rituals. Like I remember it was like everything was about maintaining young. Like he really, my grandfather was a television repairman, really into electronics. So he always had like some kind of vest or some kind of coat and like his pocket protector. So he did look like a scientist.
Crazy.
So then when I would see him in the kitchen, he was always mixing stuff up. He was really into drinking teas and herbs. But I was a kid, so I didn't... That stuff to me, like, he wasn't so much sharing it with me.
Okay.
He was just doing it for himself. But the memories I have of my grandpa really were just funny because he was like a radio DJ in his younger years. So he was like, would make really funny voices, would always talk like Woody Woodpecker. He would always interview my brother. I remember when my brother was like 8 and be like, so how's your girlfriend doing? And he was always asking about the girls and the boys. You know, like, I always wanted to know if we were involved with somebody, but we're like 5, 6, 7 years old, you know? So that's kind of really how I remember my grandpa, like, just being really into like looking sharp, smelling good, you know, being clean, and just maintaining healthy, you know.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah, like it was very ritualistic. Like my grandpa like never smoked, never drank, like nothing, you know.
Hence him living to 93, right? Like, woo, I want to live to that age, right? Like, regarding the recipe, did you want to read it? Do you want to talk a little bit about, you know, what you put in it?
Sure. So basically the recipe is 1 cup of diced pineapple, 1 cup of diced cucumber, 1 cup of diced nopal, 1 handful of spinach, 4 sprigs of parsley, 3 limes, and 5 cups of water. And you blend everything in a blender, in a high-speed blender. And this gives you enough for like 4 or 5 servings, so you can share with your family or you can drink it throughout the day. But truth be told, this particular smoothie is so amazing because the greens of the cucumber, the nopal, the parsley, the lime, and kind of these alkalizing effects really give you a lot of energy.
Yeah, it's very powerful smoothie.
You know, and it is very detoxifying. Like you will be using the restroom often, you know, and releasing a lot of liquids because truth be told, there's a lot of the foods that we eat, a lot of foods and high salt, high sugar, you know, they also help like make us retain a lot of liquid. So then this particular smoothie like helps release all those like fluids that have been stored up in our body. But every time I make it, I mean, I think of my grandfather and I think of like this knowledge that our ancestors have and our relatives have that so much they didn't share it with us verbally, but just by observing their actions really like stood out to me, you know?
Okay, when can we expect the book? Oh, how's the process going? Like, I know you're still working with it.
The funny thing with the book is like, I feel it. I can already imagine me reading it, places, sharing it, selling it. It's just the finalizing part of it, you know?
You're almost there.
So I think I just really got to lose that fear or that what if, are people going to like it or not going to like it? But you said something to me not that long ago that you were like, you know what? Like, do the book for you, but also, like, for your daughters. Like, just kind of, like, what are we going to leave behind for our children, you know? And, like, I wish I could go back and pick my grandpa's brain. I wish I could go back and pick my grandma's brain. Yeah. You know, I really do. Like,
of course. I think a lot of us feel
you know,
that
like,
way.
hey, tell me what you were doing, you know, and what was this and what was that, you know? And so, and also our family, like, my family, like, my mom and my aunts, we're very small. Like, there's not a lot of, like, people I can go to get this information. So sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I could, like, go back in time and ask these questions, you know?
Well, I'm a big believer about time traveling, so...
Yeah, so I got to connect with my grandparents in the spirit realm.
I think it's important that we archive, we document, that we leave this, our information, because we are important, we are essential, so we want to document to leave these for our forthcoming children, right, or forthcoming youth that can use this information, especially when it is empowering, it is informative, it is meant for you to like be more vital with your beings. So yeah. So this book, I know people have been asking. I sometimes read your Facebook post and people ask like, hey, when is your book coming? We're waiting for it. What would you say? What is your prognosis? When can we expect?
Let's go for the fall of 2020.
Fall, okay.
That gives me summer season to work on it.
You heard it here.
Spring and summer. And so fall of 2020.
Okay. Yeah, I just gotta dial in some things, and I see you working on it. So I'm also a fan of her writing and her stories and her cooking. Definitely a fan of her cooking. So I too want it, out. I want you to produce this book, finish it, better yet. So thank you for sharing, and I
You're
really
welcome.
enjoyed.
Thank you for reading it.
I was gonna say I really enjoyed reading that story. Thank you, everybody,
Thank
and
you for tuning in.
we'll be back with more storytelling, with more interviewing, and we'll have fun.
Yes. Thank you for tuning in.